With us today to discuss the presidential election and where things stand right now, Dr. Robert Preuhs from Metropolitan State University of Denver. By the way, you saw in the civics test, the Metro State student, 12 out of 14. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Of a job
Proud
you
of
guys
our
are doing.
students, yeah, definitely.
So the newest information we got late last week was with the Colorado GOP and the delegates that are going to the state convention and who wants to be taken for picked to go to the national convention in July. And what we learned from that, there are 587 delegates who are on the ballot. 13 will get picked, and of all of that, we've broken down who supports who. And the majority of them, 60%, don't have a pick still. They say they're unpledged. 30% support Ted Cruz, 7%, and I believe it was just 41 people total, support Donald Trump, and John Kasich has 2%. So as we look forward to the end of the week in the state convention, what are the chances that the 60% of the unpledged are the ones that get picked to do some wild card thing in Cleveland?
Right. Well, you know, the Republican convention delegate selection process, right, is really somewhat of an informal process. Right now, the campaigns are going out trying to get support among all of the delegates to the state convention in terms of making sure that their candidates for the national convention actually get elected. So it's real possible, actually, that we see slate block voting where that plurality 30%, right, that's voting for Trump, or I'm sorry, that's voting for Cruz, could go on and take all 13 at the national or at the state convention. But you also have to remember that there's district conventions as well. And so each of the state's 7 congressional districts get 3 delegates to send to the national convention.
And that's being decided this week still, prior to the state convention. So the majority of the people going to Cleveland will have been decided before the state convention.
That's true. And then they meet in Colorado Springs or in Colorado Springs to make those final decisions. But yeah, so it's still a fairly open process right now.
Is it disingenuous if some of those unpledged don't go? Because right now it says the majority of the people don't have a choice, send me to decide by the time the convention happens, versus the 3 out of 10 people, or not even the 1 out of 10 people that support Cruz and Trump.
Right. Well, it really depends on how many of the convention attendees are willing to make that leap of faith, right, that unpledged leap of faith. My guess is that when you have really intense interest, right, really intense preferences for one candidate or another, you're going to see those folks doing their best to lobby their colleagues at the convention to make sure that their candidate supporters are the ones that get elected to that national convention.
And that's probably why we're seeing the presidential candidates show up for the convention now to make that last pitch.
Yep. 1 month ago, congressional or the presidential candidates didn't care too much about Colorado, right? It wasn't going to matter. Fast forward 4 weeks, and we have presidential candidates attending our GOP state convention, and they're going to make a strong pitch, trying to make that clear argument that they should be the ones that win the most delegates.
I should probably separate these questions, but how does Donald Trump become the nominee? How does Ted Cruz become the nominee?
Right, so in the big picture. Well, when it comes down to it, the magic number is 1,237. That's the number of delegates at the national convention they need to have a majority. Donald Trump is about 500 delegates away from that. But there's only about 943 delegates left throughout the primary season. So he needs to make up or win more than 50% of the vote or the delegates that are remaining. Cruz's best hope is, of course, to block Donald Trump. So both of them are trying to gather as many delegates as they can right now. But once that first round goes, if there's not a clear majority, then it's really, really out in the open.
Is that it for Trump if he doesn't get it on the first ballot? Is that it?
I don't know if it's it for him totally, right? There's still the possibility that he can pull in some delegates, some unpledged delegates, some folks that had pledged to Kasich, maybe not. But we'll have to see, right? And there's going to be a lot going on. I mean, there's so many unknowns once you get that failed attempt at a majority on the first ballot. Everyone's free to vote however they'd like.
Let's talk about the Democratic side. Earlier this week, so in Colorado, we know during the caucus on March 1st, the majority chose Bernie Sanders, but when you take into the superdelegates, it's pretty even if everyone's going to get equal delegates. Earlier this week, Governor Hickenlooper said that his obligation is to do what is in the best interest of Colorado and the country. Well, he's already said he's going to support Hillary Clinton. Doesn't sound like he's going to switch to the best interest of what Colorado preferred.
Right, yeah, and there's 12 delegates, or superdelegates that come from Colorado, and a majority of them, 8, right, have supported Hillary Clinton. The question really is about, you know, what is the best from the superdelegates' perspective? What's the best for the party? And so superdelegates were originally put in place in the 1980s as a way for the Democratic Party to really push forward a bit more moderate candidate that they think would be more electable. That doesn't always mean that at the state level, state preferences are going to match what those superdelegates do.
It doesn't seem like that is going to be the case likely with the Democrats. And
Right.
by this time next week, we'll know what it means for the Republicans. Again, the Republican convention on April 9th. We'll have a better, clearer picture of what Colorado is going to do when they go to Cleveland. Dr. Preuhs,
We'll see you in a week.
thanks for
That's
joining
right.
us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.